All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to a very special episode of Scoops Podcast. I'm here with my brother Ernesto and our friend Josue Arias. Go ahead, guys. Say what's up.
Yo,
Hey, what's up, guys?
what's up?
So, I'm saying it's a very special episode because we are doing a small little tribute video for Kobe Bryant. It is the anniversary of his passing, and so I wanted to make an effort to reach out to Laker fans, Kobe fans, basketball fans alike, and get their input on the day that Kobe passed, on what Kobe meant to them. Because I mean, sports fans all over the world, Kobe meant a lot to so many people, and so on a day like his passing, it'll be nice to hear words from other Laker fans and other Kobe fans, and connect with them in that way. So I'll ask some questions, and then you guys can just take turns answering them. So the first question being, what did Kobe Bryant mean to you guys? And I'm sure that that question holds a little different and more meaning after his passing. It being so sudden, and how big of a force he was in the world, not just the sports world, but in the world in general, and how much he meant to so many people. And I know, including the two of you. So, what did Kobe Bryant mean to you guys?
So you want to go first?
All right. Yeah. I think that Kobe Bryant, first of all, was, in my opinion, the greatest Laker ever. It could be argued that maybe Magic or Kareem, but I just think that with his whole career in mind, 20 years with the same team, all of his accomplishments, um, just everything that he gave to the team. I feel like just off the bat, in my opinion, greatest Laker ever. Um, and so growing up in LA and being an LA native, I feel like Kobe Bryant is the greatest sports athlete that I've ever been able to witness play. Right, I was a little too young for Michael Jordan, and LeBron played in another city, so Kobe was my guy, and being able to watch him for 20 years and grow with him, basically, because he started 1996, and you think about him coming in as a 17-year-old and really like kind of awkward teen, and then I'm a kid, and so I'm starting to figure out who I am as well, and so like looking up to Kobe, and becoming an adult, a little bit after Kobe became an adult, and so just following his career, and um just, yeah, he was just a guy that was a role model in my life, and somebody that day in day out, I could basically, you know I would guarantee that if I turn on the TV at night, and the Lakers were on, that I was going to see something special from Kobe. I was pretty much guaranteed that for a long time.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And I know Josh. You probably feel the same way I do. Like, if I look back at my life, and I look back at some of my, like, what are these big sport moments in my past that, like, that I jumped off the couch, I ran around the living room, arms in the air, like those were Kobe Bryant moments. Like, he was responsible for a lot of these moments that I'll never forget in my life. Like, and in my household, we're big on sports, and so Laker games are always on, Dodger games are always on, but it was different when Kobe played, because, like Jose was saying, like, anytime you watched it, like, it was something special was going to happen, and you knew something special was going to happen, and you dare not turn the channel to watch something else, because, like, you knew, like, if you did, you were going to miss something, and that's just the kind of specialness that he brought to the game, that and any given night he could do something spectacular, something historical. It's one of those things where, and again, just looking back in my history, my past, and those big sports moments, like, they all revolve around Kobe. And honestly, like, we were spoiled. It's been, especially after his passing. It's you think back about it, and it is especially just resonates how special he was, and how lucky we were to have rooted for him for his whole career. Like most NBA players don't stay with their career on one team, and the fact that he stayed with the Lakers for that long and brought us as LA fans championships and so many of those moments, like, you know, the city is always going to be eternally grateful for him, and we are as fans. So he, like, no amount of words can describe what he meant to the city and what he means to sports fans in LA, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely. My next question is, what do you guys remember about the day that he died? Like, I remember I was coaching a basketball game in Mar Vista, and at halftime, a parent came up and told us that he passed. It was reported from TMZ. And then a friend of mine came in the gym and looked at me and gave me a head like shake, like, yeah, it's real. And I didn't even remember the second half of that game. I don't remember coaching. Like it was a trance, and the rest of that day was just like a fog.
Yeah.
Like it was just me quiet wherever I was, just like not even like my brain was turned off. Like I couldn't even think about anything if I wanted to. Like I was out of it the rest of the day, and I was talking to a lot of different people who were the exact same way. They just remember just being out of it for that day. They couldn't remember anything. They just remember the news and, you know, watching the news and seeing all the different people talking and just how horrible that day really was. What do you guys remember about the actual day that he passed?
I'll go first. And oddly enough, like Josue was the one who texted me. So I was at church that morning and you know, not really checking my phone, and Josue texted me. And I remember just thinking it was a joke, thinking it was a prank. And then I went on my Twitter feed, and then I saw like TMZ reported, and then somebody from ABC News reported. I think it was like Kurt Sandoval. One of their anchors reported it, and I still remember like it just not believing it, still not believing it. And I remember like going to my wife Sabrina and showing it to her, and she thought I was joking too. Like it almost still doesn't feel real. Like still a year past, it's just something that, you know, it's hard to still accept. And I'm with you, Daniel. Like I just remember that day, like I told a couple of my buddies from church, and they were the first to hear it from me, and just seeing their reaction of like, you're lying, you're joking, and me being like, no, like look at this, like showing them the Twitter feed, and then being like, oh my gosh, like it went from like, you know, you're lying to utter disbelief. And so that whole day was just I just walking around like not really believing what had happened and thinking it was still fake. And again, it still feels fake. I don't know, it still doesn't feel real. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't even realize I was the one that texted you.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So for me, you know, I'm on Twitter a lot, and I only have at the time I only had two notifications. Like whenever someone would tweet, it would pop up in my phone. So anytime Kobe Bryant would tweet, I would get a notification, and then every time there's a car chase, I would get a notification, right? And so the car chase feed that I follow went through my phone. So I was at church as well, and I remember getting like what was the notification, looking down at my phone, and all it said was R.I.P. Mamba, right? And I made a decision. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna look in, like, what is this? And so I started looking, and then as I start to scroll Twitter, and then one after the other, and then I remember like everything just kind of went blank. It was the weirdest feeling. I mean, I know I never met Kobe and all that, but I don't think there was another person that, you know, another human being that I've never met that would impact me as deeply as that did. I remember texting my dad. I guess I texted Ernesto. I remember texting maybe one or two other people, and then church service finished, and I remember like I was holding another guy's hand. Like I knew that he was a Laker fan, and like the church was over, and we didn't even talk. We just both knew already what had happened, and like I grabbed his hand as in like a dude, like I don't know what to do, and like it was kind of like a similar reaction. And then I remember going to sit in my car and kind of sitting there in disbelief. And then I remember how just the day just kept getting worse and worse. Like, first of all, it was like, man, maybe it's not true. Maybe it's not true. And then it was like, oh, it was Kobe and some of his family was on the plane. It's like, oh my gosh, like, you know, and then, you know, as the news kept coming in, and then hearing about Gigi, it was just like, oh my gosh. And then I start to think about Kobe's family and Vanessa and what, what they're feeling that day. And I just remember the vibe of the day in the whole city. I mean, it was like a foggy day, right? So like the city was like in mourning, and you could already feel it like instantly that day. I turned on the radio, and I could just fan after one after the other crying, and like just it was just such a surreal day. Yeah, so
I think it's one of those like moments where like you're gonna never forget where you were when it happened, or who told it to you, right? Like I had a buddy of mine who I ended up being the first one telling to, and he was like, I wish him a happy birthday the other day, and he was like, bro, like you're always gonna be, I'm always gonna remember you as the one that told me that Kobe died. Like I still can't believe that, I can vividly remember Josue sending me that text message, and what I was wearing, where I was standing when I got that message, and it's one of those moments that you will never ever forget where you were or what happened after that moment you found out. So
It was like time stopped. Like like the world in unison, just everyone stopped what they were doing, just in utter shock of what happened.
it's I mean, it's crazy. Like we talked about it. Like we invited him into our living rooms every night. Like he was family. You know what I mean? Like it was like a family member passed away, and I feel like a lot of people felt that way about him. Is that they were that close to him, and they shared all these moments with him, and for him to pass away that way, just it's the same kind of feeling as if a family member passed away.
Yeah, definitely. My next question is, this is going to be a hard question, but what is your favorite Kobe moment? And there are tons of Kobe moments, I know, but what would you say is your favorite? I'll go first. My favorite Kobe moment was his 60-point game. I remember jumping up and down in the living room watching that game, and it was, everyone was expecting, maybe just a little lighthearted, he'll hit a couple jumpers and get a standing ovation type of thing, and then he went out there and dropped 60.
the last game you're saying.
Yeah, the last game, his final 60-point game. He's had
Oh,
plenty of 60-point games.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the most, probably the most iconic of his high scoring games, other than his 81-point game, being the 60-point game, and it was unreal to see, and everyone was going crazy on that day, on that game.
Did you go down to Staples and see it there, or where were you?
I was at home watching it.
I had a buddy that went down to Staples and like not inside the game, but like was it at the just like kind of like LA Live area?
Yeah.
And he was telling me that people were just going crazy that night, like high fiving and like, Kobe not gonna drop 40. He's like, oh my gosh, he's gonna drop 50, and then he drops 60 on him. Man, that's for sure one of those games that it's just typical Kobe, man. Like he had to leave it all out there, right? Like the last game that we have of his is a classic. I mean, it couldn't have been any other way. Kobe doesn't go out just like like a whatever game, right? So yeah,
he poured his soul out in that last game. Like you can literally see him giving it all, like leaving it all on the court in that game. And
he was gasping for air on the bench, I remember. And I can imagine the only thing he was thinking was, this is the last time, go out there and keep going. This is the last time.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be surprised if he slept for like a week after that game. He literally, kind of like that Jimmy Butler moment in the finals, right? Like, seeing him gas, like there's certain moments in sports history where you can see an athlete literally give their blood, sweat, tear, their soul to a game, to a moment. And much like Jimmy Butler, like he was giving it all and giving it all to the Lakers, giving it all to the organization, to the fans. He was just pouring it all out for them. And it's very inspirational.
Definitely. So I'm still waiting for your moments. Do you share my moment, or is it a different moment for you guys?
There's so many, man. We could pick.
I know.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give one. The torn Achilles free throws. You know what I mean? Like
that was great.
That I mean, I don't know. Just another moment where like he gave it all. Like, it did not matter what the moment called for. He sacrificed his body, his mind, his soul for the game. And that just it went to show just how much he loved the game, that he sacrificed his body like that. I don't know. He was a tough cookie, so
as tough as they came.
Yeah.
What's funny too, like I remember that game, like I almost didn't watch it. I almost missed it. I tuned in the fourth quarter, and knowing it was kind of a big game with the Warriors or whatever, and I remember seeing that play, and at first I was like, that's a weird, like not really thinking it was the Achilles, but
he just kind of fell.
Yeah. But then when you could see that he had nothing in his legs, and then he made those 2 free throws. Is like, okay, like this is different. Like you could see in his face that he knew that this was like a long-term injury, right?
Yeah. And if you remember, he hurt himself a few plays before that. Remember, he came down weird. There was contact when he was going to the basket, and it might have been an ankle turn or something. But I remember people were like, "Oh man, that looked kind of bad." But he shot up, and he was okay after being on the floor for a bit. And then that second one, it was like, okay, this one, that's weird. And then when he was just stone faced, it was like, yeah, that doesn't look good at all.
Yeah, he gave the typical, like, what do they say when it's an Achilles? Like, you look back because you feel like you got kicked on your leg.
Yeah.
And he looked back to be like, who kicked me? And then I think he knew it automatically. He knew it right away.
Yeah.
I have a question. Did any of you guys saw that 81-point game like live?
No.
So that's another one that I almost missed. So
yeah.
What was really funny about that game was a Sunday night, right?
Right.
And so, church usually would always get in the way of Laker games on Sundays.
Right.
And I remember going home, and it was the third quarter, and he had like, I don't know, 35, 40 or whatever. And so I got to watch the rest. So I did watch the fourth quarter live.
Right. Which is, in essence, history.
Yeah, and then watch the the rest of the game. Like, I think I've seen that game probably 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah. But like same thing. Like I was at church that night. We had youth group that night, and it's funny because one of the youth group leaders there, Mark Coleman, he was a season ticket holder, and so he had tickets to that game, and he ended up giving up his tickets to go to church that night to serve in youth group, and of course that's the night, the 81-point game night. But yeah, I mean, it was a game against Toronto. Like, again, like, nobody thought anything special was going to happen. But again, when Kobe's playing, like, anything can happen,
The crazy thing about that those couple of weeks is like, the talk of the town was like, could he even top 81? At that point he was dropping like 60 like it was nothing, right?
Yeah.
Like I guess I'm such a Kobe fan that the other night when everyone's like going crazy that Steph scored 62, and I was like, whatever, like that's no big deal. Kobe dropped 62, on a Wednesday, and no big deal, right? But like I just remember that season the Lakers were terrible. The only reason to watch them, real honestly, was just to watch Kobe, because I was like, that was the season, or was it 2 seasons after Shaq, the 81, or was it the season after Shaq?
It might have been.
It was in 07.
Oh, okay, so it was a while after. Okay.
Yeah. It was I think it was the season before Powell, the season one or first or second season before Powell came.
Yeah. That's a great one. I'm gonna go vintage Kobe. I'm gonna go old school Kobe. One of my favorite games, or at least I want to say a favorite game, but a game that if you understand Kobe, you understand why this game was so important in his career. I would say it was his rookie season playoff, 3-point air balls, 3 in a row against the Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I picked that one is because I remember that season. I mean, he's the rookie. Del Harris wasn't really playing him. But then, towards the end of the season, he gets some more playing time, and he's like this flashy kid, and it's like, okay, great. The Lakers are really young. They don't really have anybody who closed out games, and then here they are against the Jazz, who are like on their way to play the Bulls, right? And Lakers are close. It's the elimination game. I think it was Game 6, right? If I'm wrong. Am I right on that one? I don't know. I think it was Game 6, but the Lakers have this. They're in the game. It's the fourth quarter. No one wants to shoot the ball, but 18-year-old Kobe is like, all right, I want to shoot the ball, and he shoots 3 air balls, three in a row, 3 different plays. And then the Lakers are eliminated. And the reason why I remember and look back on that is going, Kobe obviously was, trashed a little bit, in the media, the next day. I was like, oh, they shouldn't have been giving the ball to the kid. But then Kobe, what they said is that he went immediately that night and shot all night, right? And shot 3-pointers all night. And then, he wouldn't let that setback get him down. And so, like, the reason why I picked that game is because you see that in his career, like, no matter what happened, if he would miss a clutch shot to end the game, like, for every great play that he had another one that was like a missed shot or whatever, but he never let that get to him, right? He always came back. And so early on, he developed that, and you saw that in that 18-year-old kid, when he failed, but he came back the next season even better. The next preseason actually is my favorite Kobe dunk. So a couple months later, he comes back and he dunks on Ben Wallace. If you guys remember that one in Vegas,
Yeah,
the one from the free throw line, he just like dunks on Ben Wallace. So I mean, Kobe was just incredible. So yeah,
so many highlights.
yeah,
Definitely. So if you had to describe Kobe to a non-basketball / Kobe fan, how would you describe, like, what would be the first thing that you tell that person? Maybe a kid who's just getting into basketball and is like, who's Kobe Bryant? Or, a friend that's never watched basketball. How would you describe Kobe Bryant to that person?
I've had a lot of conversations with like my dad about like what Kobe, like what Kobe is. I mean, obviously he's a fan too, but I feel like if it's someone who doesn't like basketball, Kobe Bryant is somebody who you can look to as a hard worker, right? Who is someone who is not necessarily naturally gifted, right? Who worked at his craft and became the best there is because he was relentless, right? He wouldn't allow any excuse to come up to have someone be better or whatever than him. So you could take that in anything. Like, if you want to be a great, if you want to have a great garden or whatever, you got to put in the work, right? You gotta dig, and you gotta put in the hours to have things, bloom or whatever. And so he's just that kind of a person that you can get inspiration from in any situation, right?
Yeah, I was gonna go along the same lines where it's like, Kobe is just it's even if you put sports aside, Kobe was like almost a near perfect image of what dedication, what hard work looked like. He was somebody who, like Josh, relentless is a great word to use. He did not give up, and he wanted the ball and the big plays, and just his dedication to his craft is something that we haven't seen in a long time, and I don't know if we're ever going to see again. I'm going to butcher this because he used to have a quote above his locker room that talked about, like, whenever I get discouraged or things aren't going right, I go see a stone cutter who's hammering 100 times at a stone without a crack even showing, until the 101st blow, it splits in two, and then I know that it's not the 101st blow that did it, but all the blows that came before it. And that speaks to Kobe because, he put in the hard work day after day after day. And sometimes, like Josh said, like the results wouldn't be there, like sometimes he would shoot the ball 50 to 60 times and, only make 10 of them or whatever it may be. But the results weren't always there. But he knew that if he kept putting in the hard work and he was dedicated, that the results would then follow. And that's what led to such a great career, is that he just never gave up and he kept working at it. And so if anything, you can explain it as like he's somebody to look to to how to hone your craft, how to be determined, and how to get to where you want to get. Like he's just a great example of that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's like when it comes to adversity or things that may go wrong, in life. He's somebody that you can get inspiration from. Like we talked about his Achilles. Normally an Achilles is probably the end of a player's career, especially that late in the stage in the game, right? And so Kobe took that and he came back from it, and then he was a mentor to other players that get like season long injuries. I remember when Hayward got his when he broke his leg, right? Kobe wrote this long post for him, right, and said like inspiring him. So yeah, Kobe is that. It's just the Mamba mentality. You can take that and plug it into anything.
And not just adversity and hard work, but adaptability. Like his slogan, different animal, same beast. Like he knew he was as good as anyone at adapting to whatever situation he needed to adapt to, whether that was putting, throwing in something new to his game, whether it was, working harder at this, at that, whatever it was, if he knew it was going to help him, he would adapt and he would do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. Not a lot of people, not a lot of basketball players, and not a lot of people in general are that good at adapting to different situations.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And honestly, his game adapted too, right, throughout his career. Like, and honestly, a lot of it is thanks to Jordan. Like Jordan kind of laid the blueprint down for how to do this, and from his earlier careers, from being someone that would drive and dunk a lot to like being somebody who worked more on his fadeaway and was more of a perimeter shooter. Like he knew, that in the NBA, the only thing that beats you is father time, and how to adapt your game in order to have success in a long-term, effect more than just in a short-term effect. And so he was successful at it. That's why he was able to play so long and be so successful at doing it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so another next to impossible question. You can answer it based on preference. You can answer it based on, factual, who you think was better or who you would want on your team. However you want to answer, it's up to you. But you got to choose number 8 Kobe or number 24 Kobe.
Oh, goodness.
And for a lot of the younger people that only remember 24 Kobe, I know you guys remember number 8 Kobe just as well.
Yeah.
And people want to talk about 24 Kobe was prime Kobe, that the more mature Kobe, but like 2007, it's still number 8. He's still number 8 in that period, and that Kobe was on just a tear on that as number 8. Those are the last couple years of him.
Number 8 is Fro Kobe too, right? So
yep, Froby, him and Shaq.
81, Shaq.
Yeah, it's so tough because 24 is like, I don't know, to me 24 is redemption, right? Like to me, he successfully rebranded himself, and it's correct me if I'm wrong, it's around the same time of the whole like Colorado rape allegation stuff, right? Like that was a big reason he changed numbers.
No, that was 2004, right? And so he changed numbers 2008.
Got it. So it was a while afterwards.
So he did what's really cool. It was like 10 years of 8 and then 10 years of 24.
Yeah. That's tough.
8 won 3 rings, 24 won 2 rings.
When he goes into the Hall of Fame, he has to pick one, right? Like, I mean, he doesn't have to pick it, but his family picks one, or can he go into the Hall of Fame as both?
He could. He's the only player to have 2 numbers retired. I would not be surprised if he was the only player with 2.
I would, man.
That's a really tough question.
I would say if I wanted to just have some fun, 8.
But if you want to win,
I want to win, and it's
24.
Time to destroy some Celtics.
It's 24.
Know what I'm saying? Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Definitely.
Yeah. So but you know what? Like I feel like right now the way the game is, like if we were trying to plug in Kobe today, and the way that the game is played right now, obviously number 8 would just destroy this league.
Oh yeah.
Be unstoppable.
Definitely.
So yeah.
Not being able to touch a number 8 Kobe Bryant.
Come on, it's over. Yeah.
Pick Ernie.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, it has to be 24. I think I just did so many of his great memories was with him wearing 24. I don't know. It's tough though. He has great moments in both of them, but he again, like I feel like he rebranded himself. Like it was kind of his redemption, kind of like, all right, this is my later half of my career. And while most people are slowing down, like I'm going to show you how much more I can speed up. And he did things while wearing 24 in the later half of his career that a lot of younger players can't do in their first half of their career. So
he became a legend in 24. Yeah. That was a number that he really became legendary.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that even if you like, let's just say that Kobe was two different people, was and number 8 was one career and 24 was one career. They're both Hall of Famers.
That is very true as well.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I agree. This next and last question is just a would you rather made up scenario. Would you rather have seen Kobe play LeBron in the finals, or would you rather have had that Chris Paul trade go through, have Chris Paul be a Laker?
That was a sham.
What would you have rather seen? And it is probably going to be different as a Laker fan. You might say Chris Paul, or be leaning towards saying Chris Paul because you want to see him on the Lakers. But I mean, Kobe and LeBron in the finals, that would have been something that people would have talked about forever.
Kobe and LeBron in the finals on the same team, like if they were both on the Lakers?
No, opposed.
So Cavs Lakers, or are you saying Heat Lakers? Heat Lakers. It would have been Heat Lakers. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I would have loved to have seen that matchup. Heat Lakers. Yeah.
Ernie?
Only if so. Here's the only thing. I would never trade the Celtics championship over anything. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're telling me that the Heat would have beat the Celtics to get to the finals that year, then I don't want that. I wanted the Celtics that year. So I would say Chris Paul, because I never would want to not have that victory of beating the Celtics in Game 7. You know?
Yeah.
That Chris Paul trade did some damage to the Lakers that was like irreversible. Like it literally broke Lamar Odom. Like never the same after that trade. And so
too, man. I saw a meme yesterday where it said like Bynum got traded from the Lakers, never played for Philly, and then went to the Cavs and got a haircut at halftime, and then never played a game again. Both Lakers. Yeah.
I mean, I as much as that Chris Paul trade should have gone through, and who knows how many they could have run off with having a facilitator like Chris Paul in his prime on the Lakers with Kobe. It's got to be LeBron and Kobe. Like it's got to be one of those two once in a generation type players going head to head against each other, and
two friends.
Right.
It would have been fun watching those two go against each other because of how much mutual respect and love they have for each other.
Yeah. Although they're both, very, very, very different style of players, It's funny because, when LeBron first became a Laker in my household, it was really difficult to accept and like LeBron. And that's just because, you've gone especially for my wife, she's gone through seasons after seasons of hating LeBron, right? Like you hated LeBron when he was on the Heat. And so it took a while, and not only that, but there was so much comparison to he's, she would tell me he's not like Kobe, he doesn't, necessarily need the ball or want the ball, he doesn't want the big shot. They're very different type of players, and I don't know, it would have been really interesting to see them match up, but I still think they're really different. I don't know. What you guys think?
Our test would have guarded LeBron, and LeBron would have most likely guarded Kobe.
you know what? Like if we're talking matchups, Lakers Heat, I think that I would have loved to have seen Artest shut down, like, or at least not shut down, but pester LeBron.
LeBron. Yeah.
And then I think Kobe Bryant would have shut down Dwayne Wade.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think that we would have been probably talking about a different Dwayne Wade because he never had to face Kobe in a finals. You know what I'm saying? So that people are like, oh, Dwayne Wade's after Michael and after Kobe, maybe Dwayne Wade's number 3 in that list. Nah, man, they're not even close. In my opinion, they're not even close.
Yeah, a lot of people say it's Jordan, Kobe, and then a very distant third, Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, no. So I would have enjoyed to see that matchup as well, to see Kobe shut down, guard Dwayne Wade, and then probably see Pau Bosch. I mean, it would have been great. It would have been a great series.
Great basketball for sure.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you guys because Kobe is someone where you can sit here and think of all these awards and all these great moments, but it'd be remiss not to like talk about like the dark side of Kobe, the other side of Kobe, and like you can sit here and literally come up with a list of like everything that he did for the city and all that stuff, but like where does his like that year that he demanded a trade from the Lakers organization, like where does that fall for you guys? And do you feel like that tarnishes at all his legacy in some sort of way, if anything?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm interested. Like, does it in your book? Like, is it the type of thing where like that should be some sort of a blemish to his legacy? Because like I don't know, as a Laker fan, I struggle with it. Like when it first happened, it took me a while to be like, why would he want to leave the Lakers? Like, but I have a take on it, but I want to hear your guys' take on it.
I think that summer was tough. It was like scary for a while there. When he went on the radio and he was like, I want to be traded. I will play for Pluto, like whatever. That's what he said, right? But I think that it was more about Kobe just being frustrated, and I think he was probably the first. And now it's so common to see with superstars in the NBA. He was at the point of like his limit. He was frustrated with the teams that the Lakers had put together, and I feel like in a way he was playing chess with Dr. Buss. He was playing chess with Mitch and the Lakers organization, going like, all right, let's put all my chips, or whatever poker, whatever you want to put in here, and say like, I need some support.
Yeah.
And then that's the season where they get Pau, right? So
Pau, right, yeah.
And
who knows? Like maybe if he doesn't demand a trade, they don't get Pau. Like who knows what happens?
Yeah. I feel like when people talk about like Kobe was a loyal Laker, like maybe he didn't think that he was going to be that at the beginning. I mean, his whole persona is always like, I'll do whatever it takes to win, right?
Yeah.
And so the fact that he was a Laker for his whole career, I think is just a tremendous blessing for the city of LA and for the Lakers, because if we would have lost him, man, I would have had a hard time. I know that I think I'm a Laker fan first and then a Kobe fan, but that would have put it to the test for sure.
I think it's hard to tarnish a reputation like he had. It's hard, and anything short of him flipping off Laker fans and cursing people out and then saying I'm out and never playing basketball in a Laker jersey again, anything short of that, it's like that guy that's the guy.
Yeah, you could probably see like how Shaq is now like, now treated here in LA. Like I feel like for a while Shaq was like the villain. He left the city. He won a championship somewhere else. We don't like him anymore or whatever. He was never as good as Kobe anyways. And then now, like, a couple years removed from all that, like, I feel like I'm grateful that Shaq played for the Lakers. We got, whatever it was, 8 seasons out of him. Like, I think that if Kobe would have left, it would have been a bummer. and I feel like his storybook career, like just like the whole story from beginning to end is just like a perfect 30 for 30, right? Like whenever they do his story, I think it's gonna be great,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you guys. Like, at first it was something that I couldn't really understand, and I kind of struggled to wrap my head around it. But kind of even, especially how NBA is functioning now, like these superstars kind of realize like they only have a window. You know what I mean? They have a small window to make their max contract. They have a small window to like win championships, and so I think Kobe had kind of gotten to the point in his career where he realized like I got a window, and if we're not going to be serious about putting like a winning team onto the court every night, like I'm not going to, let that affect my career and my legacy. And so I do think Jose was right. Like I do think it was kind of him playing chicken, and again, it leads to Pau Gasol, it leads to rings, and it's one of those things where sometimes that's what it's got to take to get you to what you need to get to. But yeah, it's to me, like those are questions, like questions I would always get as Laker fan, like especially Kobe, like why didn't Kobe take a pay cut towards the end of his career, like Tim Duncan would take to, like in order to get more superstars, like he's selfish because he always wanted a max contract. But like I remember Kobe, like always talked about like the reason I get paid this kind of money is because like I deserve to earn this kind of money. Like he was one of those players where like you're not going to get away with giving him 10 million a year to stack a team. So yeah. Anyways,
And that whole trade thing came. It was not long after Shaq won his fourth ring, and I'm sure that also like that dug at Kobe. That dug at him. He was like, "This guy that left me, he just got his ring, and I'm not going to be the one. I'm not going to be the one at the end of our careers that has less rings between the two of us."
How many, if they would have stayed together, how many do you think they win?
They would have won. So they would have won. Yeah, they would have won the season after they lost. So they lost to the Pistons in 2004. They would have come back and won 2005.
Yeah.
And then 2006, I feel like Shaq is still dominant. He probably win again. I would say probably another three-peat.
I would agree.
Yeah.
At least
5 or 6.
Yeah.
Man. But before we move on from the Kobe never leaving LA, I feel like now that time has passed and like Vanessa Bryant is now a little more vocal on at least a more public persona. The other day she put on Instagram kind of hinting that she was the one that always or convinced Kobe to stay in LA. So it was a post about one of the daughters trying to leave LA to go to college or whatever. And she's like, I'll talk her into staying in LA just like I talked Daddy into staying in LA. Yeah. So I definitely shout out to Vanessa Bryant for keeping the Mamba in LA.
Yeah. For sure.
So I'm gonna close up. Are there any final thoughts you guys have that you want to share about Kobe? Anything that over the past year that's been lingering? For me, it's just the fact that it's still weird. It hasn't become any less weird from day one, not having Kobe around, not, them winning a ring and having a ring ceremony and not seeing Kobe or his family in any way, or not seeing Kobe's face at all. Like scrolling through Instagram and not seeing him coaching Gigi, or not seeing a tweet that he put out, or not seeing him on a late show, or not seeing the latest project he's doing, all that stuff. It's still as weird as when it was that first day. And yeah, I feel like
when he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just going to be so weird.
It's going to be weird. Yep.
Yeah.
It's everything that's going to continue happening with the Lakers, or even with Kobe's career, like his Hall of Fame stuff. It's still going to be weird. And I feel like I'm just as reflective about everything with Kobe as it was, it was the first day.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Laker fans. It's going to be tough for a city. It's going to be tough for NBA fans. Like, it's going to be tough for everybody to, like, especially this first year, to kind of relive, those kind of moments. And I don't know, like, it's one of those things where, it's going to be tough. I don't know how to explain it. it's gonna rehash some feelings of it not feeling real. Like, it's still not gonna feel real, and it's gonna, I'm hoping that the media, does it in a tasteful way. Like kind of Vanessa Bryan talked about it. Like, they don't need to be showing footage of the crash or anything like that. Like, and so it's, but yeah, it's gonna be difficult to kind of celebrate that, and I hope it's just filled with with Kobe highlights. It's gonna be filled with the happy stuff, the good stuff, the legacy that he left behind. Yeah, it's gonna be difficult.
Yeah, I think that looking back now, 1 year after, it's still raw. I would say, like, if I haven't thought about Kobe every day since like a year ago, it's probably every other day. Like it doesn't go very long. Like I don't go very long without just having some thought about Kobe, or like seeing a mural when I'm driving in the city or something, or like I have this thing that I put in my house, and so like man, I miss, yeah, like what Daniel's saying. I miss seeing, like, whatever new projects he's coming out with, his tweets, like I said, like I only had, he was the only person that if he tweeted, I got a notification, and now it's just car chases. That's all I know. So, but yeah, I mean, he's somebody that I feel like was just getting started, which is why it's so tragic, because I feel like his second act was going to be just as impressive and just as iconic as his first. I feel like he wanted to show all of us that he wasn't just a basketball player, right? That he was more than that, and that he was excellent at many things, and he was just starting to show us how great of a father he was, right? And so just that loss, I feel like, is still so raw, and I feel like, as time passes, it might feel a little easier to not feel the same pain or whatever that that we all feel that he's not around anymore. But I feel like it's he's somebody that left enough of himself in all of us in the city, right? That we can look back at his career and all of his moments and go like, man, like we were really fortunate to have such an incredible person, day in, day out to watch and to admire. And so, yeah, so I mean, definitely, I think, I'm going to spend the day missing him and watching some highlights and wishing he was still around,
Yeah. And I mean, that's
for me too. Sorry, for me too. It's like, and I always like go back and think about like the what ifs, like the way that Gigi's career was like headed, like she could have easily been like the best, WNBA player to ever play the game. Like she could have been maybe the first female to ever play in the NBA. Like there's just, she had, you know what I mean? Like she had the raw capability, and she had the coaching, she had the genes, she had the talent, and it's just like those are like deadly combinations, like or like to think that maybe Kobe ends up like coaching her in the WNBA, or like he never had a kid, but maybe they tried for another kid, and he has a boy, and that boy grows up to be the next greatest NBA player. Just like there's so many what ifs that you can play, but I don't know, it's sad. There was a lot of things stolen that day, and all those what ifs were stolen, and like like we've been talking about, like like Josue was talking about, like there's so much more that was left of Kobe to play out and develop, that we're never going to get to see because of what was taken away from us, and so it's a difficult day for sure.
Yeah.
The dude won an Oscar in 4 years after being retired. So like,
Yeah.
you just imagine what what he would have done if he would have been around longer. So
are you guys proponents of like them changing the NBA logo to Kobe? Like, I don't know how serious that is, but
nah, I think that the logo should stay the logo. But I feel like what teams should do to I feel like players do it all the time. I mean, like, isn't Kobe's shoe the most popular shoe among players right now? Like everyone's
Right.
wearing Kobe's. So like, his stamp on the game is gonna be forever. You know.
They need to like
I wouldn't.
change the trophy. They need to do something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind any changes for Kobe, whether it's a logo or maybe naming some sort of award after him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they will eventually. I just
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool that the city changes the street to Kobe Bryant Way or whatever it is, right? Like it's Kobe Bryant.
yeah.
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 Yep.
And like it's insane how many murals there are of Kobe and Kobe and Gigi.
Everywhere.
Like you drive and I feel like you see one everywhere you go, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why it's like it's so hard to not remember him. Like, you know, like what I said, like it's he's everywhere in the city. So
Yep.
yeah.
There's always something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I want to thank you guys for joining me and for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Bro.
All right.